The massive imperial palace towered over the capital city of the Galactic Empire, its crystal spires reaching toward three pale moons hanging in the purple sky. Ambassador James Miller stood at the window of his temporary quarters, adjusting his formal diplomatic uniform. After 20 years of service to Earth, this was possibly the most important day of his career. "Sir, the Imperial Guard is here to escort you to the council chamber," reported his assistant, Robert, from the doorway. Miller nodded, taking one last look at his reflection. At 55, his hair had gone completely gray, but his blue eyes remained sharp and alert. He had earned every wrinkle on his face through decades of diplomatic service, helping humanity navigate its first steps into the galactic community. The Imperial Guards, towering beings in gleaming armor, led Miller through winding corridors decorated with artwork from 1,000 worlds. Their heavy footsteps echoed against the polished stone floors. Other alien diplomats they passed pressed themselves against the walls, showing clear fear of the guards. Miller walked with his head held high, matching their pace. The council chamber doors stood 3 stories tall, carved from what looked like a single piece of dark wood. They swung open silently, revealing a circular room with rising tiers of seats. Hundreds of alien representatives from across the Empire filled the chamber, their quiet whispers creating a constant background hum. High Commander Gray sat on an elevated throne at the chamber center. His species was humanoid but tall and thin, with gray skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. 4 arms were folded across his ornate robes, and his black eyes fixed on Miller with an unblinking stare. "Ambassador Miller of Earth," Gray's voice boomed through the chamber. "You stand before the Imperial Council today to address concerns about humanity's rapid expansion and technological advancement." Miller stepped forward to the speaker's platform. "High Commander, honored council members, humanity comes before you not as a threat, but as partners in building a more prosperous galaxy. In the 50 years since first contact, we have worked tirelessly to prove ourselves worthy members of the galactic community." Murmurs rippled through the assembled aliens. Gray raised one of his hands for silence. "Yet in those mere 50 years, your species has colonized 12 systems, developed faster than light technology independently, and begun trading with frontier worlds outside Imperial control. Some might see such rapid growth as concerning. Progress should not be feared," Miller replied calmly. "Earth remembers its history of war and conflict. We have learned from it. Our expansion is driven by curiosity and the desire to contribute to galactic civilization, not conquest." "Pretty words," Gray said, "yet actions speak louder. The Empire has maintained peace for 10,000 years through careful control of technological advancement and expansion. Your species refuses to submit to these controls." Miller stood straighter. "With respect, High Commander, humanity did not join the Empire as a conquered race, but as free allies. We signed treaties guaranteeing our autonomy in internal affairs. Our growth has not violated any of those agreements." The chamber erupted in angry shouts from various alien representatives. Gray silenced them with a gesture. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion more privately, Ambassador. Join me for dinner in my personal chambers this evening. We can speak more freely there." Something in Gray's tone made Miller's instincts scream danger, but decades of diplomatic training kept his face neutral. "I would be honored, High Commander." As the guards led him back to his quarters, Miller contacted Earth on his secure communicator. "Command," he advised. "Situation here is tense. The Empire seems more threatened by our progress than we anticipated. Recommend putting defense forces on quiet alert, just in case." Miller out. He didn't know it then, but those would be his last words to Earth. In 6 hours, he would be dead, and humanity would be on the path to war. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years through fear and control. They thought they knew how humans would react to their ambassador's death, with fear and submission like all the other races before them. They were wrong. The Imperial dining hall glowed with soft blue light from floating crystal orbs. Ambassador Miller sat at the massive table, trying to ignore the growing unease in his stomach. High Commander Gray sat at the head of the table, his four hands moving gracefully as he spoke about the Empire's long history. "You see, Ambassador, every great civilization must learn its place in the natural order," Gray said, gesturing to a servant to pour more wine. "The Empire maintains peace through hierarchy. Each species must accept its role." Miller took a small sip from his glass. "Humanity believes in earning our place through cooperation and mutual respect, High Commander. Surely there's room for different approaches, too." He stopped mid-sentence, his hand suddenly trembling. The glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the polished floor. Miller's vision blurred as he tried to stand, his legs giving way beneath him. The last thing he saw was High Commander Gray watching him with those cold, black eyes. "Such a tragedy," Gray said softly. "A natural heart failure, quite common among humans, I'm told." In the medical bay 12 levels below, Dr. Tom Wilson stared at his scanner with shaking hands. As the junior medical officer on duty, he'd been assigned to handle the preliminary examination of the human ambassador's body. What he found made his blood run cold. "This can't be right," he muttered, running the scan again. The results were the same. Traces of a sophisticated neurotoxin, designed to mimic natural heart failure. The kind only Imperial military labs could produce. The door hissed open. Dr. Wilson quickly switched off his scanner as Chief Medical Officer Davis walked in. Davis was human-looking, but with gray skin like all Imperial high officials. "Report," he demanded. "Initial findings suggest natural causes, sir," Wilson lied, his heart pounding. "Standard heart failure." Davis nodded. "Good. Prepare the body for transport back to Earth. The Empire, in its generosity, will provide a state funeral." Once alone, Wilson copied the scan data to a hidden drive in his pocket. His quarters were surely watched, and all official communications monitored. He needed another way to get this information to Earth. The chance came 3 hours later. Wilson volunteered to help prepare the ambassador's body for transport, while placing Miller's personal effects in a diplomatic bag, which would be protected from Imperial searches by treaty. He slipped the drive into the ambassador's jacket pocket. The next morning, an Imperial battlecruiser carried Ambassador Miller's body back to Earth. In its cargo hold, the diplomatic bag held evidence that would shatter the peace between humanity and the Empire. On Earth, the massive United Earth Government building in Geneva buzzed with activity. Admiral Mary Roberts stood before the Security Council, her face grim as she presented the findings. "The evidence is conclusive," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Ambassador Miller was assassinated using a Grade 7 Imperial neurotoxin. Dr. Wilson risked his life to get us this information." The council chamber erupted in shouts and arguments. Admiral Roberts raised her voice over the chaos. "The Empire believed we would be too afraid to act if we discovered the truth. They thought we would quietly accept our place in their hierarchy." She played a final recording, Ambassador Miller's last message about putting forces on alert. His foresight had given Earth precious hours to prepare. "The Empire has ruled through fear for 10,000 years, Roberts continued. "But they don't understand humanity. We don't bow to threats. We don't surrender to bullies. And we never, never forget our fallen." The Security Council's vote was unanimous. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth united under a single banner. Their message to the Empire was simple. Humanity was going to war. In his palace, High Commander Gray received the news with amusement. What could one young species do against an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 10 millennia? He would soon find out. Admiral Mary Roberts stood in Earth's most secure military facility, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Giant screens covered the walls, showing real-time updates from across human space. Her hands tightened behind her back as she watched the latest reports come in. "Play the full recording again," she ordered. The room fell silent as Dr. Wilson's smuggled data appeared on the main screen. The young doctor had managed to escape the Empire's capital world by hiding among medical staff, and now stood beside her, still wearing his Imperial medical uniform. "Look here," Dr. Wilson pointed to a complex pattern on the screen. "The toxin breaks down in a way that would look natural to most scanners. But our latest medical technology caught something they didn't expect. A unique atomic signature that only comes from Imperial military labs." The door opened, and the leaders of Earth's major military powers filed into the room. Chinese, American, Russian, European, and Indian commanders, along with representatives from 20 other nations, took their seats around the massive conference table. "Ladies and gentlemen," Roberts began, "what you're about to see proves that the Empire murdered Ambassador Miller. They thought they could hide their crime. They were wrong." For the next hour, she presented the evidence. Chemical analysis, security footage showing Imperial guards entering Miller's quarters before the dinner, and most damning of all, communications intercepted by Earth's deep space listening posts. "They're already spreading the story that it was natural causes," Roberts said. "But listen to this." She played a decoded message between Imperial officials. "The human problem has been dealt with. They will learn their place, like all the others." General Thompson from the American Space Force stood up. "The Empire controls thousands of worlds. They have fleets larger than everything humanity has built combined. How can we fight that?" Roberts smiled grimly. "Because we've been preparing for something like this since first contact. Show them Project Phoenix." The main screen changed to show massive underground hangars across Earth and its colonies. Inside were ships, warships unlike anything the Empire had seen. While humanity had appeared to focus on civilian vessels and trade ships, they had secretly been building a fleet designed to fight the Empire if needed. "We learned from Earth's history," Roberts explained. "Every time a more advanced civilization encountered a less advanced one, it usually ended badly for the latter. So we prepared. Every ship we showed the Empire was outdated by our real standards. Every weapon we demonstrated was a generation behind what we actually have." Dr. Wilson stared at the screens in amazement. "The Empire thinks they know humanity's capabilities. They think they've measured our strength." "Exactly," Roberts nodded. "The Empire believes in overwhelming force to maintain control. But humanity." She pressed a button, and the screen showed new images: quantum computers running battle simulations, advanced AI systems analyzing Imperial tactics, and weapons that could target the specific weaknesses in Imperial technology. "We believe in innovation, in outsmarting our enemies, in turning their strength against them." The room erupted in discussion as military leaders debated strategies and deployment plans. Roberts raised her hand for silence. "The Empire has ruled through fear for 10,000 years. They've forgotten what it's like to face an enemy who isn't afraid, who doesn't give up, who learns and adapts." She looked each leader in the eye. "They killed our ambassador, a man of peace who represented the best of humanity. They thought we would cower. Instead, we will show them something they haven't seen in 10,000 years, a real fight." The vote was quick and unanimous. Earth would go to war, not as separate nations, but as one united humanity. As the leaders filed out to prepare their forces, Roberts stayed behind, looking at a photo of Ambassador Miller on the screen. "They thought killing you would make us weak," she said quietly. "Instead, it made us stronger than they could imagine." Across Earth and its colonies, ships began rising from their hidden hangars. Humanity was ready for war. The Imperial fleet's largest base orbited a gas giant in the Centauri system. Thousands of warships rested in neat rows, their crews barely alert. After all, no one had dared attack an Imperial stronghold in 10,000 years. Admiral Peter Black watched the base through his flagship's stealth viewing system. His fleet of 50 human ships remained hidden behind the gas giant's rings, their new quantum cloaking shields making them invisible to Imperial scanners. "All ships report ready, sir," his second-in-command whispered, as if the enemy might hear them through space. Strike teams are in position. Black nodded. Send the signal. Remember, we hit hard, we hit fast, and we show them exactly what humanity can do. Across his fleet, crews moved with quiet efficiency. These men and women had trained for years in secret, preparing for this moment. Each ship carried weapons the Empire had never seen, designed to exploit weaknesses in Imperial technology that their arrogance had left unchanged for centuries. Strike teams, go, Black ordered. Small dark ships detached from the human fleet. Each carried 30 soldiers in advanced combat suits. While the Empire relied on numbers and brute force, humanity had developed stealth and precision. The first Imperial ship never knew what hit it. Human soldiers cut through its hull using phase-shifting tools, entered through the breach, and disabled its systems before the crew could raise an alarm. Within minutes, 20 of the Empire's largest warships had been silently captured. Then the real attack began. All ships execute attack pattern Delta, Black commanded. His fleet emerged from behind the rings, weapons charged. The remaining Imperial ships scrambled to respond, but their outdated tactics were no match for humanity's years of preparation. Quantum disruptors killed their shields. Targeted electromagnetic pulses shut down their engines. Precision strikes disabled weapons without destroying ships. The Empire had expected a primitive enemy fighting with brute force. Instead, they faced an opponent who had studied their every weakness. In the base's control center, the Imperial commander watched in horror as his mighty fleet fell to what should have been an inferior force. "Impossible," he shouted. "They're just humans. How are they doing this?" The answer came as his own screens activated, showing Admiral Roberts' face. The same message played across every Imperial ship and base in the sector. "For 10,000 years, you've ruled through fear," she said. "You killed our ambassador thinking we would bow down like all the others. Instead, you've awakened something you don't understand. Humanity united in purpose." On the screen behind her, more human fleets emerged from hyperspace across Imperial space. While the Empire had watched their borders, humanity had already positioned forces near every major Imperial base. "You thought you knew our capabilities," Roberts continued. "You saw what we wanted you to see. You never wondered why we learned your technology so quickly, or why we studied your military history so carefully." Black smiled as he watched Imperial ships either surrendering or being disabled one by one. The Empire had trained its crews to fight traditional battles against traditional enemies. They had no defense against an enemy who thought differently, who had spent years preparing specifically to fight them. "Sector secured, Admiral," his tactical officer reported. 80% of Imperial ships captured intact. Minimal casualties on both sides. "Send in the technical teams," Black ordered. "Download their databases, secure their weapons, and treat their wounded. Let's show them the difference between their empire and humanity." The battle was over in less than an hour. As Black looked at the captured Imperial fleet, he knew this was just the beginning. The Empire was vast, but they had grown complacent. They had forgotten that the most dangerous enemy isn't the biggest or strongest, but the one who learns, adapts, and never gives up. Humanity was at war, and the galaxy would never be the same. In a hidden research facility on Mars, Chief Engineer Alan Cooper stared at the holographic display showing the latest battle data. Around him, hundreds of scientists and engineers worked at their stations, analyzing captured Imperial technology. "Look at this," he said to Admiral Roberts, who had come to see their progress. "The Empire hasn't significantly updated their shield technology in over 500 years. They thought it was perfect, so they stopped innovating." The display showed an Imperial battleship's shield matrix. Next to it floated a smaller diagram of the human-designed quantum disruptor that could shut it down in seconds. "Their biggest weakness isn't their technology," Cooper explained, pointing to various parts of the display. "It's their mindset. They think they've reached the peak of advancement. They've forgotten how to adapt." Roberts watched as another simulation played out. "And we haven't." Cooper smiled, leading her to a massive testing chamber. Inside, a captured Imperial fighter hung suspended in a gravity field. "Watch this," he said, pressing a button on his control pad. A beam of energy hit the fighter. Instead of bouncing off its shields or causing damage, the beam seemed to pass through the ship's hull, then emerge from the other side. "Phase shift technology," Cooper explained proudly. "We developed it by studying how Imperial shields work, then finding ways to bypass them completely. Their shields are like a brick wall. Impressive, but useless if you can walk right through it." In another part of the facility, Dr. Lisa Reed led a team working on something even more revolutionary. "The Empire relies on brute force," she told Roberts as they watched a test. "Their ships are bigger, their weapons more powerful. So we decided to use that against them." She pointed to a small device, no bigger than a coffee cup. "This is the mirror protocol. When their ships fire their main weapons at us, this device captures the energy and sends it right back at them. The bigger their weapon, the harder they hit themselves." Roberts picked up the device, surprised by its size. "How many can we make?" "That's the beauty of it," Reed grinned. "We've already supplied every human ship with them. The Empire is literally fighting itself now. They just don't know it yet." The facility shook slightly as a massive ship rose from an underground hangar. Through the reinforced windows, Roberts could see its sleek shape, so different from the bulky Imperial designs. "The Ghost Dancer," Cooper said proudly. "Our latest class of ship. It uses everything we've learned about Imperial technology. Their sensors can't track it. Their weapons can't lock onto it. And it carries enough quantum disruptors to disable a whole Imperial battle fleet." The ship vanished as its stealth systems engaged. Not just invisible, but completely undetectable by any Imperial technology. "We've got more innovations coming," Reed added, bringing up more designs on her tablet. "Adaptive AI systems that learn and adjust tactics mid-battle. Nanite swarms that can disable Imperial ships from the inside. Every time they show us a new weapon or defense, we find a way around it within days." Robert studied the data with pride. While the Empire had spent 10,000 years becoming set in their ways, humanity had spent its entire history learning, adapting, and overcoming challenges. "The Empire thinks this war is about strength," Cooper said, watching more test results come in. "They don't understand that it's about innovation. Every day, we get stronger. Every battle teaches us something new. While they stay the same, we keep evolving." A message flashed across the main screen. Another Imperial fleet had been defeated using the new technologies. Not destroyed, but disabled and captured. Each victory brought more Imperial tech to study, more data to analyze, more ways to improve. "They killed our ambassador to teach us fear," Roberts said quietly. "Instead, they taught us how vulnerable they really are. How do you defeat an enemy who learns from every mistake, who turns your strength into weakness, who grows stronger with every battle?" The Empire was about to find out. The space around Proxima Centauri glowed with the lights of 10,000 Imperial warships. High Commander Gray had gathered the largest fleet in Imperial history for one purpose: to crush humanity once and for all. "Let them come," Gray said from his massive flagship's bridge. "Let them see what real power looks like." His four hands moved across control panels as reports came in from his fleet. The Empire had never lost a major battle in 10,000 years. He didn't intend to be the first commander to do so. On the bridge of the human flagship Ghost Dancer, Commander Jane Foster watched the Imperial fleet through advanced scanning systems. Only 300 human ships faced the Imperial Armada, but she smiled. "They still don't understand," she said to her crew. "They think war is about having the biggest fleet, the most ships, the strongest weapons." She pressed a button on her command chair. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Phoenix." The human fleet split into small groups, each moving with precise coordination. Imperial sensors couldn't lock onto the ships properly. They seemed to fade in and out of reality, appearing where they couldn't possibly be. "Impossible," Gray shouted as the first wave of human attacks struck. His mighty fleet's formations broke apart as they tried to target the smaller, faster human ships. How are they moving like that? Where are they hiding? The answer came as quantum disruptors fired from multiple directions at once. Imperial shields flickered and died. But instead of destroying the helpless ships, the human vessels fired precise shots that disabled weapons and engines. "Sir," one of Gray's officers called out, "they're not just attacking. They're hurting us, pushing our ships exactly where they want them." Gray realized too late what was happening. His massive fleet, packed too closely together, had become its own worst enemy. Each disabled ship drifted into others, creating chaos in the once perfect Imperial formation. Commander Foster's voice came over all channels. "Now you see the difference between us, Gray. You rely on brute force. We rely on strategy." Small devices attached to Imperial ships began to activate. The mirror protocol units. When the desperate Imperial captains fired their main weapons, the energy bounced back, disabling more of their own ships. "All ships, execute final phase," Foster ordered. The human fleet suddenly vanished completely. Gray's officers panicked as their sensors showed nothing. No ships, no energy readings, nothing at all. Then human vessels appeared inside the Imperial formation, firing precisely at command and control ships. "They're inside our lines." Gray raged. "How did they get past our defenses?" "Phase shift technology." Foster's voice came again. "While you spent 10,000 years thinking you were perfect, we spent 50 years learning how to beat you. Your shields can't stop what they can't touch." Gray watched in horror as his mighty fleet fell apart. Ships surrendered by the hundreds as their weapons and engines died. Others drifted helplessly, their crews evacuating in escape pods that human ships quickly collected. "This is impossible," Gray whispered. "We are the Empire. We cannot be defeated by primitives." "That's why you lost," Foster replied. "You thought we were primitive because we were young. You never wondered why we learned so quickly, adapted so fast, developed so many new technologies in just 50 years. The battle was over in less than 2 hours. The largest Imperial fleet ever assembled had been defeated by a force 1/30th its size, not through superior numbers or stronger weapons, but through innovation, strategy, and the one thing the Empire had forgotten, the ability to adapt." Gray stood on his bridge, watching escape pods launch from his dying flagship. What are you?" he asked as human soldiers entered his bridge. Commander Foster appeared through the phase-shifted hull, her armor making her look like a ghost made solid. "We are humanity, and we're here to show the galaxy a better way." The Empire's undefeated record had ended. The age of Imperial rule was over, and it had taken humanity just 6 months to do what no one had managed in 10,000 years. 1 year after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, the Great Hall of the former Imperial Palace looked very different. Gone were the intimidating guards and fearful ambassadors. Instead, representatives from 1,000 worlds walked freely through its corridors, their voices filled with hope rather than fear. Admiral Mary Roberts stood at the same window where Ambassador Miller had stood his last day alive. She wore her formal uniform, now decorated with medals from not just Earth, but dozens of freed worlds. "They're ready for you, Admiral," an aide said quietly. The main chamber had changed too. The Imperial throne was gone, replaced by a circular table where representatives from all species sat as equals. Roberts took her place, looking at the faces around her, humans, former Imperial officials who had chosen peace, and leaders from worlds that had been under Imperial control for thousands of years. 1 year ago, she began, her voice carrying through the chamber. "We gathered here to begin building something new. Not an empire ruled by fear, but a federation built on cooperation and mutual respect." On the screens around the chamber, images showed the changes of the past year. Former Imperial warships, now converted into exploration vessels and trading ships. Human quantum technology being shared with other worlds. Schools where different species learned from each other. High Commander Gray, now wearing simple prison clothes, was led into the chamber under guard. His once proud posture was gone, replaced by the look of someone who had finally learned humility. "You stand accused of crimes against multiple species," Roberts announced, "including the assassination of Ambassador James Miller. How do you plead?" Gray looked around the chamber, seeing many faces of those his empire had oppressed. "I am guilty," he said, his voice quiet. "We ruled through fear for so long, we forgot there was any other way." Roberts nodded. "Your sentence has been decided by the new Galactic Council. You will spend the rest of your life helping to rebuild the worlds your empire damaged. Not as a prisoner, but as someone working to make things right." Gray's eyes widened in surprise. He had expected execution. "You would show mercy." "That's the difference between your empire and our Federation," Roberts replied. "We believe in justice, but also in redemption. Ambassador Miller believed we could all be better. His death taught us to be strong, but his life taught us to be wise." The council session continued, discussing plans for the future. Trade routes were being reopened, this time with fair terms for all worlds. The Imperial military was being reformed into a peacekeeping force, with ships and crews from all species. Scientific knowledge, once hoarded by the Empire, was being freely shared. Later that day, Roberts visited a special memorial in the palace gardens. A simple statue showed Ambassador Miller talking with children from different species. The inscription read, "In memory of those who died seeking peace, their sacrifice taught us to be strong. Their dreams taught us to be kind." "We did it, James," she said quietly to the statue. "The Empire thought killing you would make us weak. Instead, it made us strong enough to change the galaxy." A group of young aliens and humans ran past, laughing together as they played. In orbit above, ships from 100 worlds moved peacefully through space. The mighty Imperial fleets were gone, replaced by vessels of exploration and trade. The Empire had ruled for 10,000 years, thinking their way was the only way. It took humanity just 1 year to show the galaxy a different path. "The next 1,000 years will be different," Roberts said, watching the children play. "Not ruled by fear, but guided by hope. Not controlled by force, but united by choice." She touched the statue one last time before walking away. The sun was setting on the former Imperial capital, but unlike before, its light promised a new dawn. A dawn where all species would rise together, learning from humanity's greatest strengths: the ability to adapt, to innovate, and most importantly, to hope for a better tomorrow.